All right, well, welcome to the afternoon session. Those are always the ones that you got to stay awake through, and I'm hopeful that this topic will keep everyone energized. It's definitely the first time I've been at a global e-commerce forum where we were talking about the metaverse, but really we're talking about roads and highways that have never really even been conceived before, especially as it relates to retail. So my name is Dan Wallace-Brewster. I'm SVP of Marketing and Research at e-commerce solution provider ScaleFast. We specialize in quickly connecting DTC brands across borders, including technological borders, and reaching specialized customer segments, and proudly serving a diverse portfolio that spans across gaming and luxury. And we're pleased to feature some leading voices in this metaverse revolution. Kimber Cooper. She's an Emmy Award winner and creative visionary with over 20 years of design, film, visual effects, VR, AR, XR, and e-commerce experience. Among her many accomplishments, she's helped create the first virtual retail experience with Walmart. Kimber's latest endeavor is a new startup called Interverse, which partners with iconic brands to create compelling digital NFT products and innovative, immersive experiences in the metaverse. Immediately to my left is Justin Hochberg. He's a futurist, a storyteller, a deal maker, which is all very exciting. He's also not needing a microphone today, but we'll let it ride. Who's spent a career aligning brands and their consumers with multifaceted talent from Hollywood to Silicon Valley. He's currently the CEO and founder of Virtual Brands Group, designing, building, and operating digital experiences for brands from sports teams to pop stars to global retailers across gaming platforms, digital merchandise, and NFTs. And last but not least, Chidi Erike joins us from the center of the universe, Meta. Tongue-in-cheek there. While at Facebook, Chidi has led a team of digital disruptors supporting Facebook's global business group and focused expertise in beauty, health tech, fintech, and apparel. So welcome to this panel. It was really exciting pulling this group together. I'm excited because I love to geek out about this stuff. So I want to start by getting a little bit more of the non-bio description of what you guys are facing day to day. We'll start with you, Kimber. You have a fascinating feather in your cap, bringing an organization that I think most of us would perceive as old school in Walmart into really the head of the class for virtual goods and virtual retail. So talk to me about that experience and what it was like to sell that into that organization and culture.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we were working with Intel, we were working with DreamWorks and How to Train Your Dragon, and we worked with Drew Barrymore on her interior design line, and really thinking about it from a different perspective of like, we didn't want to make a store with aisles, we wanted to make experiences. So we kind of dove into it from a different perspective and more thinking about how do you experience these products in a context. So for example, you know, taking camping products, putting them in a virtual Yosemite environment, and setting up layouts so people can understand, oh, this is the setup I need for just me and my husband or a couple. This is the setup I need for a family. And really looking at the products and showing them how you can set up a tent easily in steps. So we're kind of, you know, why I got into VR is because I wanted to take what we did in film and visual effects and that Iron Man moment that we worked on when Tony Stark is trying to solve a problem and bring it to VR and in the metaverse. And so that's what you can do. You can bring that magic to life. You can look at products, you can open them up, you could really show people how things work. And by creating these experiences, you're, you know, creating a memory with these consumers. And when they have a memory, they're much more connected to the product, connected to the experience, and they can go back and remember it. And so we're building those emotional connections, you know, throughout our VR experiences.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you know, I think what resonates with me there is it began with the utility. How do you solve a problem for your customer, not just the latest flash in the pan? Justin, you've been working with some great brands in your practice as well. Tell us about the initiatives you've led for Forever 21.
So we work with across many different sectors, as you said in the introduction. We're most publicly well known for taking Forever 21, the trend fashion brand, which interestingly enough, 2 years ago was in bankruptcy and was trying to figure out how to become relevant. If you're a trend fashion brand, you need to be on trend. And I completely agree with what she just said, which was the value here is experience. These are not games. The definition of a game has a beginning and an end, which is no good. The problem with stores is they suck. Now, why do I know they suck? Because if you go to a store, what is your goal in a store? To get in, find it, and get out, right? Which is why e-commerce is so fantastic. I don't have to spend any of the time. I don't have to park. I don't have to find it. I don't have to look for it. You know, I'm sure Walmart is different, but a lot of big box retailers, you can't find anyone. It's hard. In stock is stores are not a great experience. Now, what she's done and what we've done is we took Forever 21, which is just a retail brand, and we turned it into Disneyland, because the greatest store in the world is Disney World. It's just a store. You walk in, you buy a pass, you buy another pass, you buy a Goofy mug, you hug Goofy. Only about 12% of your day is actually spent on a ride. The rest of it is buying other stuff or experiencing other things. So if you think about the world that you want to be in, which is a week cruise on Disney, then that becomes the model of what can an experience be like for a brand. And I think what she said was perfect, which is don't ever recreate the physical world. Whatever you have in the physical world ain't that great. And you know how it's just not that great. Unless you got the Eiffel Tower as your store, it's not that interesting. It's just retail. Like even the Apple Store, it's beautiful. But when the laws of gravity don't exist, when you can create anything and empower anybody, why would you ever just recreate reality when you can create these immersive experiences that allow people not to shop? Shopping's not that important. Shopping comes when people gather, play, learn. The average person on Roblox makes 17 new friends a month. They sell 5.8 billion items a year on that platform alone. I use that because people know Roblox. So when you think about an immersive experience, think about how do I make the Disney World for your product, whatever it is.
It's great. Awesome. I told you he'd wake you up. So Chidi, you've got a really cool title. Disruptor is right in the name of what you do.
I don't know how anyone could compete with that. That's just unfair.
Love the title.
I totally agree.
Unfair.
I'm totally stealing it, by the way. Talk to me a little bit about your day-to-day and how you're basically a strike team for brand innovation.
Yeah, so right now, most of our brands are trying to go international, right? Over the last 2 years, the pandemic has sped everything up. I would say our brands have been talking about the metaverse. Even though the company's name is now Meta, 3-4 years ago, we were having conversations with a lot of these brands, like how can we improve e-com? How can we connect consumers to those brands that they actually want to purchase something from, right? So it's a lot of fun because now this virtual space is, and I want to connect with you because I know you're building a lot right now. It's a lot of fun because what we've seen is a lot of brands are trying to actually reach consumers in different ways, especially brands that have relatively high price items. So take a furniture brand, for example. Like obviously there's only so many furniture stores you can open up to keep up with some of these fast growing e-com brands, but what if everything could be virtual, right? And this is the things that we're trying to explore right now. These are the things that we're excited about. I also have other brands like, say, Headspace, right? Which you're not moving a physical product, but you are moving into other regions of the world that actually, you know, they need to meditate. They need to meditate anyway. They need that product, they need that service. So how can we better reach those people? And those are just exciting conversations to have with our clients.
Right. So play devil's advocate for me. I think that Facebook's rebranding as Meta was a watershed moment for the overall general consumer to even conceive the metaverse. What would you say is the counter argument?
We move fast, but not that fast, right? These types of decisions take a long time. Our decision to change the name to Metaverse, you know, started happening way before a lot of the news that you're referring to pretty much got out into the marketplace. And I think for a lot of the company, like I started in headquarters, Menlo Park, and for those of you guys who haven't been there, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of buildings. And most of those buildings, those teams are working on things that you would never guess, right? And I would say this name is more representative of that, you know?
Yeah, I'll have tough questions for you about this later, but for now.
Can we borrow your key card so we can just wander around and check it all out?
If you want to visit, just let me know. Make it happen.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna swing it over to Kimber for a second. So a lot of the things that have, I think, greased the wheels for the metaverse to, I guess, accelerate here were driven by trends that came out of the metaverse, from remote work to Zoom meetings. I mean, people are really comfortable with digital representations of humans now that, 2 years ago, no way, everyone would have their camera off. I mean, I didn't even think my camera worked on my computer. Do those trends need to continue for the metaverse to continue to take hold?
I mean, what's exciting is when we all had our lockdown experience, when we all were working from home, our kids were, working and doing school from home, everyone was going digital and virtual. You were all doing it, whether you were buying something or doing a Zoom meeting or your kids are online doing Zoom calls. So we all had this virtual moment in our lifetime, and so now we're all ready. We're prepared to go buy a digital good for our avatar, get an avatar, have a virtual world, and what I'm seeing is not only are brands gonna want these virtual metaverses, but consumers and users will want a virtual space for themselves to show off their virtual goods, to show off their portfolio, to show off their artwork, to bring friends together. So they're gonna want to fill those rooms with digital goods from brands like yourselves. They're gonna want to showcase their work, whatever they're working on, whether it be music or art or games. So it's going to be this new way of communicating and bringing people together and sharing.
Can I just tag on that for a second?
Absolutely.
So I think what Kimber's getting at, because some people say, look, I don't understand why people would want to spend all day. I said, look, you just spent 9 hours on a Zoom. What's the difference, right? It's a screen. A screen is a screen. One of the things that I observed was that one big problem is that people in America, we're sitting in this beautiful place. It's the Directors Guild. We're looking at pictures from Rocky and iconic things. We're lucky. We work at Meta and Inverse and work with Walmart. The majority of the world, even in the United States, it's a hard life. Things are tough. Most Americans, as you know, feel angry about the economy, are not making billions off of stock options and trading crypto. They are working 3 jobs and maybe eating out to dinner once. It's hard. And when you then go to other countries like India or Brazil or Ukraine, it's harder and harder. And so if you think about the context of what the daily life is for most people, they're never going to go to the Eiffel Tower. They're never going to make it to Las Vegas or some other great monument that we all take, or Disneyland we all take for granted. And so if you think about that option, and the movie Ready Player One being a great example of that by Steven Spielberg, you realize that if life is so hard and it's just not that much fun, but yet you had an opportunity to go see the Eiffel Tower and not even wait in line, but probably get a better view of a sunset or experience or own a Gucci bag or a Nike sneaker that you can't afford, it all becomes very obvious why that would be hyper compelling, because you can't do that in the real world, and the real world is really not so great for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just a theory. I'm not a brain doctor, if you couldn't tell. But I do think that the same neurons that fire when you buy a Gucci bag in reality fire when you get some version of a Gucci bag in the metaverse. The same chemicals fire in your brain. And if that's the case, then it's got value to a consumer. So it sounds like really the democratization of hardware is going to make it easier for more people to experience the metaverse, from high-speed internet to new Oculus goggles, et cetera. Better mobile devices, 5G. It's going to make it more accessible, and that's going to make it more prevalent in everybody's experience.
It already has, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people who don't have, don't have TV or regular phones, they have smartphones that
Right.
stream Netflix anywhere in the world.
Exactly, unless you're using your cousin's code.
Yes, don't tell Mr. Hastings.
Yeah, so that's the future, but we still have to deal in a little bit of reality here. So Glossy and ScaleFast conducted some end consumer research a couple months ago. It showed 3 in 10 American shoppers know what NFTs and virtual goods are. So not a broad understanding of what this is even conceptually. But only 1 in 10 are interested in learning more. So there's not a huge consumer desire yet. It feels like retailers are going to have a huge role in having to convince the mainstream shopper that virtual goods have value.
I'm sorry, but you didn't say virtual goods, you said NFTs. That is a very specific execution of something.
No, NFTs and virtual goods was the way the question. It was 2 separate questions.
Okay.
The numbers were the same for both. So
Okay.
I consolidated it so we had more time to hear you.
Okay.
So
Wait,
in
what?
any case, it sounds like retailers are going to take the leading teaching role for this market. What are you guys advising your clients on how they navigate that? There's a lot of peril in brands really taking the lead, and certainly Meta has done it, and other brands are doing it. But you're still having to prove value for a product that never existed before. So why don't I start with you, Chidi?
Yeah, I would say the hook is creators. Creators has always been a focus of ours, especially for the last few years. And I think you could start seeing, I'm thinking about a couple of creators right now working with some of the brands that I work with, and they've changed the game, right? So now everybody's talking about micro creators versus creators that are more popular, whether or not to use creators for upper funnel versus down funnel, and whether or not to use creators for e-com versus hardware and things of that nature. So I would say that's the big hook. I'm also seeing it's a crowded space, right? We, as Meta, we're trying to get to those younger demos. And obviously there's other platforms out there also doing a good job with younger demos. And it's fierce because the Metaverse is a really big place, and we're seeing a lot of people with hardware, which I think is the big play right now. That's where a lot of, I would say, my personal network and friends are invested in to figure out how they could play within this Metaverse that they know is gonna grow.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's interesting examples. Balenciaga did something with Fortnite, right? Where they really, you could see their strategy. They hit 4 areas. One was like, okay, we're going to create digital products for the avatars for consumers to buy. We're going to also create environmental experiences where you can go around the world and see these characters on giant billboards, right? We're going to create a physical good that replicates the digital good that people can buy. And we're also going to create a collector's book where people can showcase how they're using the digital goods on their avatars. So I think thinking about the strategy, everyone wants to jump in the metaverse, but what are you going to do when you're in the metaverse? What are you going to do with your consumers? And how are you going to maintain that community you're building? So thinking about it long term, thinking about how you're going to update the content. And I think what's great is that metaverse, the idea of the metaverse, you can experience in VR, you can experience it on a desktop browser, right, where it's just going to be a flat screen. But I think thinking about how you're going to pull all your content together and your brand story and your messaging to your consumers and giving them these experiences, this is just this tremendous opportunity now that brands are ready for it, and and it's just this truly exciting time where it's really fresh, it's really new, and we haven't really seen, what the potential is, but there's a huge potential out there, just as all we're talking about is. So.
If I could double click on that really quick. I would just love to hear from the audience. How many of you guys have created a digital avatar before? All right, so wow, that's more than I thought. Yeah. So it looks like about 7 out of 10 people. But it's an interesting situation. It's crazy. I was taking a class. It was a presentation. I think it was a negotiation class over at Meta. And there was about 6 people in the class. I have my desk all set up, and somebody walked past my desk within the Metaverse, hit my desk and said, "Ow." Now, I'm not sure how that happened or what was the situation, but it was so real. It was actually like, wow, I could see the future. Like, I see this situation where we're all looking at a screen within the Metaverse. Mm-hmm. We all look, in different ways. You can represent yourself any way you want. But it was pretty clear that in the next couple of years, we're going to be doing things a lot different.
If I could tag onto that, I want to throw out some other statistics that I think are different than your statistics. And the 3 numbers I want to throw out are 47, 33, and 0. 47% of Gen Z, according to a YPulse data survey they did, which I love YPulse, says that what they do in the metaverse is where they will discover brands first, not in the physical world. So metaverse discovery first, physical world second. 33% of Gen Z say what they wear first in the metaverse will dictate what they wear in their physical life, okay? The third one is 0. 0 is the most important of those three numbers. And 0 is important because the marginal cost on a virtual good is 0. The supply chain issues on virtual goods are 0. The returns, defects, et cetera, are all 0. So when you think about a business that's got an incentive, whether it's retail or cars or experiences like comm or whatever, the economics of this and the logistics of creating digital assets are so aligned to promote this that when Citibank says it's going to be a $13 trillion business by 2030 or whatever the latest giant statistic is, it doesn't seem hard to recognize that because the economics work so much in favor of the IP holder, whether it's Walmart, a studio, or some of your creators who are just, undiscovered yet.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I do think even though my numbers were doomsday, it's just, that's the present market we're dealing with. And I think that we're definitely going to be taking advantage of those macroeconomic factors that Justin was talking about. And ultimately, the 0 is the most important one. In an era where supply chain and distribution is one of the biggest challenges driving inflation, you erase that as a problem. So we only have 6 minutes left. I've got a ton more questions we're not going to have time for, but I do want to talk about the portability of retail in the metaverse and how that's really the number one challenge, I believe, that is going to really prevent this from taking off, and it's got to get solved. Will Meta be at the center of that, Chidi, do you think? I mean, you're not in all of the rooms, but
I hope so. So I used to be on the product team when I first started at Meta around 6 years ago. And this is something that we've put a lot of focus in. And I think so, right? But going back to your point, there's a big difference between our e-commerce brands because our e-commerce brands typically are going after millennials, whereas we all know the value of Gen Zers. And I think that's where there's a little bit of a delta, right? So our product teams are definitely focused on Gen Zers, but as somebody who's on the business side, I'm a little bit more focused on millennials just because they're the ones who are spending right now. But we're seeing, I hope so, we're right in the middle of it, and I think that's going to continue.
And then Kimber and Justin, as brand advocates, are you advising your clients to try to differentiate where they make their bets?
Well, I mean, a lot of the brands that I'm talking to, either they want to educate to continue to, build upon the sales. A lot of education is needed with products, so they want to continue creating immersive experiences with products, or they want to grow a community because not a lot of people, as you mentioned, Justin, can afford some of these very high-end products. But if they can make digital products and reach a larger audience, that's what they're really excited about, and they're willing to invest and build a metaverse experience.
Exactly. Awesome.
I agree with both of what they've said. I would just add this part, which is one of the wonderful things about the metaverse is, although I think the three of us probably see 50 articles or 100 a day, and it seems like, oh my God, we're so far along. I think if you think of the atomic clock since the beginning of the Big Bang, we're on day 1 right now. This is like kind of day 1, right?
It's the beginning.
This is just the beginning. And honestly, probably the Big Bang moment was when you went to be Meta, right? But these platforms, as you said, you've been thinking about it for years. Roblox was founded in 2005. Mm-hmm. So that's 18 years ago, 17 years ago. So this is happening for a long time. What I think you have to keep in mind is the great thing about a digital environment, or what we would call a live ops, is it's not an end product. Once you make this jacket, if it doesn't sell, You got to mark it down and throw it out. If you make a movie and it doesn't land on a Friday night, you're done, right? In a digital world where you have these experiences and you have these avatar things and there's zero cost of margin. I mean, we design a line of clothing for Forever 21. We had 160 items, we create them in 5 days for them, right? Mm-hmm. And if those don't work, we create another 160 the next day. And if the game or experience isn't working, so what I say to people is, look, if you are a challenger brand right now and you are spending money on Facebook and TikTok and social media, that's great. But the cost to enter the metaverse with some early experiences and the value you get is so much higher at such a low level cost and nobody's going to ding you for it not being perfect because it's all about trial and error. So don't wait. Keep all your money in Facebook, but TikTok and the other ones, move it over to the metaverse because the cost to create these experiences, as we know, we're not talking millions of dollars. You're talking about anywhere from tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is just easy. And you can leapfrog your competitors because in 3 years from now, you can be the next, the way Netflix crushed Blockbuster and, Facebook crushed whatever it crushed and Google crushed the Yellow Pages. This is the opportunity that we had.
That's a nice jacket, by the way.
Thank you. It worked out, though I was going to return it.
What I will add, though, is some that you said around things being more efficient, and therefore there might be some assumptions on that being cheaper, which I don't necessarily think would hold true. I think there are a lot of virtual products that actually would be more expensive than the physical products, which is something that we all have to determine, and I think that's going to be a more interesting conversation for the future, for sure. Yeah,
scarcity. That's going to be a prime driver of the market. We have 1 minute. I'd love to take a couple questions. This is a very big topic. Yeah.
So you talked about entering the metaverse with tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. What if you're an up-and-coming brand where even that's a challenge? Where do you start?
So here's an example. You could find a digital designer for fashion on Roblox, create an entire line of items. Let's just take, I don't know what your brand is, but let's just take fashion. You could probably spend less than $10,000 to create an entire line of Roblox avatar merchandise and open up yourself to a 200 million person market on a monthly basis, just off the top of your head. You could probably, depending on what your brand is, there are 1 million platforms that want to be the next Meta or Roblox. They will actually create your virtual experience for free if they like your brand because they have to validate themselves because everybody wants to be the next Roblox. So there's 1 million ways to skin it when everybody's trying to establish themselves.
Well, they're going to play us off here, and I want to thank this panel. You guys came together at the last minute. I loved the conversation. I hope that people get a chance to talk to you the rest of the afternoon, especially if we get some cocktails. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.